Let's talk about eggplant Parmigiana sandwich. Welcome back to Sprung On Food. I'm your host, Kae Sprung. This season, we're talking about favorite foods, the history behind it, and the role it plays in the world today. Joining me today is actor, comedian, and TV and film writer, DJ Mausner. DJ, welcome.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
I am very excited that you are here. You are an hilarious person. I heard your favorite food, and I got very excited because I'm a vegetarian, and this is a sandwich that I also love and can always eat. Sometimes I have guests on, they have very specific foods that are very like meat heavy, and I can appreciate that, but I can't share that same like taste enthusiasm. So this was one I was like, hell yes, I know this one. This is great. But I need to know why this is your favorite food. Tell me all the things.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so happy to hear that you can equally enjoy this one because I'm pescatarian. And I'm the kind of person where like I live in Los Angeles and I used to live in Koreatown, and I would walk by like KBBQ places and smell it and be like, that smells so good. But it just doesn't agree with me anywhere, weirdly. So especially in the sandwich world, when you don't eat meat, there's far fewer options, you know? Like I miss cold cuts. I miss getting to eat something. I feel like eggplant Parmesan really fills that void because it's like a hearty sandwich. This is maybe controversial. I don't love like a caprese sandwich, like the tomato bocconcini.
Okay.
I think it doesn't, well, at least in North America, because the tomatoes don't really taste like anything. The bocconcini doesn't really taste like anything. Usually the bread is like a stale ciabatta. Hey, in the chat, in the comments, if you know a good one, point me to it. I will go try it in Los Angeles.
Yes, build engagement, give all the recommendations. Yes.
Comment, tag. But yes, that I particularly an eggplant Parmesan sandwich. When you asked me what my favorite food was, I know, we talked about a couple options. I love sushi, I love tteokbokki, but eggplant Parmesan, which you've covered both of those, which is very exciting.
You are not alone in those favorite foods.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, they're delicious. But I chose an eggplant Parmesan sandwich specifically because it's very like sentimental to me. Growing up in Toronto, I'm Canadian, at the St. Lawrence Market downtown. If you're from Toronto or from Canada, you know. On the main floor.
There.
Yes. Oh, I need to hear about your experience there too.
Oh, sure.
I send everyone there who like any pals out here who go on tour there. I'm like, you have to go to St. Lawrence Market because it's just it's a nice thing to do when you're in the city, when you're from out of town.
Yes.
On the first floor, there's a restaurant called Mustachio that's been there for decades. And when I was a kid, my dad used to take me and my siblings down there to grab lunch, or when my sister would have like a dance class nearby, he would take me over there because I'm the youngest. And, I wasn't doing that. I was just there for the eating, not for the dancing. Sure. And we would get an eggplant Parmesan sandwich. We always ask for extra sauce. I don't necessarily, controversially, I don't always ask for cheese on it because there is an option of it, but I get sauteed onions and mushrooms. And it's this massive sandwich, like sandwich the size of your head. And he basically would like cut it in half and we'd share because it was a half for a kid is like 3 sandwiches basically. Sure. And it was steaming hot. The eggplant was cut very thin, breaded well, nice and crispy. And there was always the same guy at the register checking us out. So it was kind of like in a city like Toronto, kind of like a community experience. There's a lot of nostalgia there. And it's so good. Like when people say, what's the last meal you would eat before you die? I always say the eggplant Parmesan sandwich and my mom's brownie recipe. She also has an incredible banana bread recipe that's like kind of like a twist on what she found in this old baking book. I can't remember the title, but I can picture it, where it was like, we've had it for so long, the cover was like slightly ripped off. Like you had to be very gentle with it.
That's how you know it was properly used. Yes.
Exactly. And she in the back had scribbled in her handwriting, which is this big kind of like choppy handwriting, the ways in which she changed parts of the recipe, which I maintain no chocolate chips and banana bread. Controversial take. Okay. No chocolate chips and banana bread, maybe nuts, and served with cold salted butter on top of hot banana bread.
Ooh la la.
Yeah, I'm getting in the weeds. People in the comments are gonna be fighting.
No, but that, I mean, I don't know who could fight about that other than being like, that sounds like the most delicious thing I've ever heard of. And then so it's like, no, that sounds like the most delicious thing I've ever heard of.
That's the argument I'm hoping for.
Oh, yes. Well, then we will manifest. We will put that out there and hope that people will probably just like not comment about that at all. But that, ooh, I have not thought to do that.
Yeah, it's
Like
something about
hot with like the cold, but just so that it, yeah. What does that do to it? It just
my God.
smells slower.
This is the conversation of my dreams, by the way, talking about the minutia of accoutrement on a baked good.
Sure.
My mom's side of the family is like Irish Catholic, so they call butter the Irish spice. They're like, all this needs is a little bit of the Irish spice, which is kind of funny. And so I think it was only natural that their like disposition was to put something salty on top of something so sweet. In any case, it kind of like melts a little bit off on the top because ideally you're eating it straight out of the oven. But the pieces that you get that are like a little bit thicker, I feel like people who, not the same flavor profile, but maybe the same kind of textural experience or a similar textural experience are like people who like, now I'm really taking us far away, but radishes with a cold salted butter. Have you ever had that?
Oh, I 100% have not, but
it's something a pal from whose folks are from New Zealand told me about. I don't know if it's a New Zealand thing, but you cut a radish, like a spicy radish, you put a pat of cold salted butter in it and you enjoyed it that way. Just cold salted butter, I guess, makes everything taste good from vegetables to baked goods.
Listen, if it can do that to a radish, then yes, it sounds like a magical ingredient. Wow. Yeah, wow. I have a new wealth of knowledge. I now know what the hell to do with my banana bread.
Mm-hmm.
And if I ever go to New Zealand, I know what can I can expect over there. Yeah, exactly. But of course, we are here to talk about the eggplant Parmesan sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
And to better understand and appreciate our food, we have to know where it came from. Picture this. The aroma of frying oil, the sizzle of the sliced eggplant, garlic and basil drifting in the air, and a crusty roll waiting on the counter, ready to catch sauce and cheese. That's the promise of the eggplant Parmigiana sandwich. It's familiar, indulgent, comforting. And yet, like many comfort foods, its roots go far deeper than a lunchtime hero roll. Our story doesn't start in a New York deli, but centuries ago in agricultural fields and kitchens across southern Europe and beyond. We'll trace how eggplant traveled from Asia to the Mediterranean, how the dish, Parmigiana di Melanzane, took shape in Italy, and ultimately how that dish was translated into the sandwich form we know today in Italian-American delis and pizzerias. To understand the eggplant Parmigiana sandwich, we have to rewind way before New York delis, way before Italian grandmothers, even before the tomato arrived in Europe, to the moment eggplant first appeared in historical records. And for that, we have to go east. Eggplant, botanically a berry, known as Solana melogena, was domesticated in South and Southeast Asia in an area stretching across what's now India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and southern China. Botanists have traced its ancestry to the wild species, Solanum insanum and Solanum incanum, which grow natively in that region. Genetic evidence places its domestication comfortably in the first millennium BCE, and possibly earlier, but that's as far as we can go without drifting into speculation. An eggplant was meaningful enough in ancient India to be written into major Sanskrit texts. The Charaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita, foundationally Ayurvedic medical works dating between the 1st century BCE and 2nd century CE, mention eggplant, not as a dinner side, but as a medicinal ingredient. It was praised for its digestive benefits, soothing properties, and possible therapeutic uses. Imagine, before eggplant was ever breaded and fried, it was basically a wellness ingredient. DJ, do you have any wellness routines that you incorporate into your life, and maybe any that might be unique or a little unconventional, like our eggplant usage here?
Ooh, my wellness routines. Well, I don't know if it's unusual, but I like to take like a 40-minute walk almost as soon as I wake up in the morning.
Love that.
And I've recently started, I've only done it a couple times, but it's become interesting to me to wake up and jump up and down 50 times as per TikTok doctors.
What are they saying?
This is, I don't know how real this is, but there is this guy on TikTok who was like, if you wake up and jump 50 times, like just like up and down, It will
Mhm.
improve your mood. It will help drain your lymphatic system. It will yada, yada, yada. And I'm all about a
Okay.
thing where you do it right when you wake up. The idea of like that time that I might just be trapped in my bed scrolling on my phone for an hour, I could be doing something else that actually benefits my life. So I guess that's the most jumping up and down.
Yeah.
I am the proverbial worst upstairs neighbor. Just jumping my ass
Oh.
off in my bedroom. But
You're
nothing
the
has
alarm clock that they didn't know that they got for free.
yeah,
They were like,
exactly.
okay. And then they know how to count to 50s. That's great.
Yes, there are many benefits for me and my community. But yeah, that nothing as interesting as using eggplant for therapeutic practices. But I would absolutely say that eggplant is great for digestion, the way that you were saying was written in those texts so long ago. And it's so versatile and so delicious. So that's incredible. Also, that you said eggplant is a berry.
I
Hell
know.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Because
you know,
there's
next time you
seeds in it,
order a
I
berry
guess.
bowl, yeah, you can just be like, where is my eggplant? They're going to be
Yeah.
like, there's
Eggplant
the door.
parmesan in a bowl, please.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, so I like this. The jumping up and down 50 times. And do you feel since you've been doing that, it has been helpful?
It has been helpful. I'm not sure if it's placebo because it's just fun
Mm,
and silly to be jumping around in
sure.
your room. I live
Sure.
alone, so just to wake up, like to think of like an aerial view of my apartment of me waking up and just like,
In my mind's eye, I was kind of envisioning like the old school or new school. I don't know. I haven't played it in ages. Mario, when you have to hit like
yeah,
those big blocks, those big yellow blocks, and you're just like
exactly.
boing, 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 jumping up and down. So
Yep.
that's kind of where my mind went. That sounds very fun. I don't think that there's any downside necessarily to it unless your neighbor has complained, but it seems like they haven't. So okay, I like this. And, you know, maybe somebody out there listening will be like, I think I'll try that too. So that's
Mm-mm.
cool. Well, from India, eggplant began drifting east and north. By the 5th century, it had arrived in China, where it shows up in Qimin Yaoshu, a monumental agricultural text from 544 CE. The book not only gives cultivation instructions, but also culinary suggestions, proving people were already doing more with the eggplant than slicing it and boiling it. The eggplant star was really starting to rise, so you know it can't just stay in one region. It was ready to hit the road again. Carried along Persian trade routes and woven into Arab agricultural innovation, eggplant reached the Middle East by the 9th and 10th centuries. That's when it appears in medieval Arabic agricultural manuals and cookbooks like the Kitab al-Tabikh, written by scholars who treated vegetables with the kind of care we now reserve for tasting menus. From there, eggplant rode the wave of Islamic influence across the Mediterranean. It entered Europe, specifically Islamic Spain and Sicily, between the 9th and 11th centuries. And let's just say it didn't exactly receive a warm welcome. You see, eggplants are part of the nightshade family. Now, edible nightshades like eggplant and tomatoes and potatoes are perfectly safe to eat, but some nightshades are poisonous. And during a time when we didn't have plant scanning apps on phones, early Europeans were suspicious of anything in the nightshade family. Some medieval texts even refer to eggplant as malansana, the mad apple, because it was believed to cause illness or melancholy. People were genuinely worried it could make you a little unhinged. DJ, were you ever told anything as a kid or growing up and later in life was like, that is not true, or an old wives' tale that you think is totally wrong?
Yeah, unfortunately, the first thing that comes to mind is that in Toronto, there was, and maybe still is, an infamous sex store called the Condom Shack on Queen
Oh
Street West.
my.
And as a kid, we must have, me, like in the back of the car, I must have driven past it several times with my parents in the car. And maybe like I used to when I was learning how to read, like read signs out loud. And maybe I read
Mm,
that out loud or something like that. But for some reason, I remember my mom saying, you have to be 18 years old to go in there. And then flash
oh.
forward to high school, like that must have been, I probably wasn't as young as a kid. We had a school trip where we were walking downtown and someone like during lunch was like, we should go in the condom shack. And we were like 16. I was like, it's illegal. We have to be 18. And we were standing outside the store and my friend was like, no, you don't. And a person who walked by, like who we didn't know, outwardly laughed at us. So my old wives' tale is that
Oh.
you can go to the condom shack in Toronto on Queen Street. You can,
Do you hear
and
that,
you
kids?
should.
Get on in there.
Get
Well, I
the
mean,
hell in there.
Let me rewind. What was it just like, what was the condom shop?
No.
Like, what was this
Imagine,
place?
though, like pick and mix for condoms. It's
That's what I'm thinking. Like, what was going on over there?
it was like, again, another Canadian sex store. This is crazy that I'm rattling these off. It's the same as any of those where you got your garden variety sex toys, some
Gotcha,
probably
okay.
section of costumes and leather harnesses, maybe some literature on like reaching sexual heights, and then I guess condoms, but like you can buy those at the pharmacy. Like you don't need to
Right.
go to a specialty store unless you need a specialty condom, I guess.
I think it was your mom's way of protecting you from that stuff. And they're like, don't go in there, you gotta be 18. But luckily, slowly and steadily, eggplant won hearts. First in the Mediterranean, then across Italy. By the Renaissance and into the early modern period, the eggplant had become part of southern Italian cooking and was showing up in regional dishes alongside tomatoes, another New World import, with olive oil, basil, and garlic. And that's the real beginning of the eggplant Parmigiana story, and the dish that gave the sandwich its name, Parmigiana di Melanzane, the layered casserole of eggplant, sauce, cheese, baked until gooey. If you've ever tried to pin down where eggplant parm originated exactly, you'll know. The historians disagree. Its origin is claimed by Sicily, Campania, and Emilia-Romagna. And to make things fun, the name Parmigiana is also subject to debate. Sicily argues that Parmigiana is theirs, born from Arab-influenced eggplant dishes dating back to the island's Islamic period 827 to 1091 CE. Sicily had eggplant earlier than the Italian mainland, thanks to Arab introduction, and developed layer eggplant dishes long before tomatoes arrived in Europe. Some food historians trace Parmigiana to the Sicilian word Parmigiana, referring to wooden slats of a shutter, laid the same way eggplant slices are stacked in a casserole. Naples, meanwhile, never a city to cede a culinary victory, points to early cookbooks. The first written recipes resembling modern Parmigiana come from Campania. There's Cucina teorica pratica from 1837, which includes a layered eggplant dish, fried in lard and baked with cheese, basil, and either stew broth or tomato sauce. And there's Vincenzo Corrado's 18th century writings. This version is described without tomato, a white version. Eggplant dusted in flour, fried, layered with cheese and herbs, then baked. Neapolitan versions historically use mozzarella or caciocavallo, not Parmesan, which brings us to the great linguistic twist. Despite the name, Parmigiana does not require cheese from Parma. The Parmesan theory is popular, but less supported than the Parmigiana shutter theory. Most modern food scholars lean toward the Sicilian etymology. DJ, it's a lot. We've got some potential origin stories of the eggplant Parmigiana. We have Sicily claiming Parmesan is theirs, and it's inspired by the shutters where the slices are stacked in a casserole, resembling that. We've got Naples, and supposedly later in the timeline, but that's where we can find it in actual written record in their recipes. So, as of this podcast recording, you're now a Parmigiana detective. What do you think of these origin claims? Does one of them hold better than the other for you? Or if you're going back in time, how are you trying to solve this case?
Absolutely. Well, this is incredibly interesting. I'm learning so much. I love this, first
good.
of all.
Okay. Okay, amazing.
Second of all, that I think, like, my knowledge around the name of the dish being eggplant parmigiana, the debates that I've had with people is that, like, the eggplant parmigiana that I know, like, for the sandwich is like, the fried in breadcrumb, thinly sliced eggplant put onto a sandwich with perhaps some provolone and Parmesan cheese. But I had heard that some part of the reason why it was called that was because the eggplant was not traditionally dredged in breadcrumb. It was in Parmesan cheese, hence eggplant parmigiana. So this is like cracking the case wide open. It's becoming far more involved than I ever thought. I only recently went to Italy for the first time last year, and it was interesting how inherent to the dishes, like different Italian cities are. Like, went to Bologna, and obviously the inventors of now I'm forgetting the name, but like those beautiful like little breads, the circle. Do you know what I'm talking about? They put like mortadella in, like a kind of like bologna almost.
Oh,
Um,
no.
but also Bologna is the home of both tortellini and lambrusco. I don't eat it's tortellini with meat in it. I don't eat meat and I don't drink anymore. But those were two of my favorite
Okay.
foods when I did
Ah,
food and
ah,
drink. So part of me, I was when you were first saying that name, part of me was like mentally sleuthing of, oh, is this originally from Milan? Turns out not at all.
mm,
Many other cities are fighting over it, and it's very interesting to me that there's a chance that the dish was in part inspired or fully inspired by South Asian or Middle Eastern dishes where eggplant was layered, because that is so common. I think of like even Mediterranean dishes like would it be moussaka? That's like
okay. Yeah,
you
with
know, like
eggplant.
layered with eggplant,
Delicious
and
dish.
so good. I'm realizing more and more through this podcast how much I love eggplant. I got to go out and buy all my
Okay.
mad apples at the store. I also think it's
Hell yeah.
hilarious, like calling a vegetable a certain thing. I mean, if you had only ever seen apples and you saw an eggplant, you'd be like, "That's one fucked up looking apple." You know, I don't
Totally.
blame
Yes.
that that instinct.
Right. Like what happened here? Like, yes,
Yeah,
like
being like, I've never seen
something
something
went terribly wrong.
so purple and oblong in my life.
Sure.
So I'm loving the history of this. I love when a food has an origin story that's based in like a nomenclature that's based in experience of the time, and the idea that it might have been inspired by shutters and the way that they fell is
Right.
incredible, because it goes back to, it makes me think of the people who were making this, sharing this with their families, or perhaps were vendors selling this, and you know, wherever you go, there you are. Like, it's just people are people, no matter what time period they're from. Like, you got to find a, not to be like everybody was trying to sling eggplant, but like you have to have a hook, and to be
Yeah.
like, when someone's never had eggplant before, and especially if they're wary of nightshades, being like, okay, this is this dish. It's referencing something that's in your house. It's bringing you into this experience. It's kind of a little cute, a
Ooh.
little kitschy, you know, to understand what this might be, so that you might try it, which I love. You know, food is the language of community, right? I feel like it's the easiest way in to experience things that you haven't experienced before, or one of the easiest ways in. So, anyways, I can't say with my eggplant detective hat on with
Yeah.
great certainty, you know, what the actual origin is, but I'm absolutely loving bouncing, my favorite thing to do, bouncing through the histories that
Yes.
we're talking about.
Well, in Sicily and Campania, versions grew. Fried or sauteed eggplant slices layered with cheese, sometimes mozzarella, pecorino, parmigiano, with tomato sauce and herbs. In southern Italy, it was often a dish of family homes, Sunday meals, community lunches, less formal than fine dining, but deeply rooted in the home kitchen. Okay, so it's starting to come together. But why eggplant for this dish? Well, in a region where meat could be expensive or less available, eggplant offered a texture and richness that lent itself to substitution. It was used in Cucina Povera, which translates to poor kitchen, but this wasn't related to poverty, more on the end of resourcefulness, and using what was available and simple, sometimes also referred to as smart cooking. What started as a simple layered vegetable dish eventually became a defining classic of Italian cooking. And when millions of Italians emigrated to the United States between 1880 and 1924, they brought Parmigiana, along with meatballs and lasagna. And if you haven't yet, you can check out the history of spaghetti and meatballs and the history of lasagna on YouTube, or available wherever you get your podcasts. Now, when they settled in the US, especially New York, Boston, Philadelphia, and parts of New Jersey, they entered a land where ingredients were plentiful and inexpensive compared to back home. Eggplant, once seasonal, became available year-round. Cheese became cheaper. Tomato sauce, already beloved, was plentiful. And in Italian-American cooking, something magical happened. The switch from baking to frying became more common. Italian-American Parmigiana leaned more into breaded cutlets, deep red slow-cooked Sunday gravy, and heaps of mozzarella. By the mid-20th century, Parmigiana dishes were showing up everywhere. But the sandwich version, that's an American invention. Okay, DJ, our eggplant parm is stepping into its fried era. When it comes to fried foods, are there any that you think are far superior when they are fried, or maybe any that are not as good when they're fried?
Ooh, that is such a good question. Okay, so this is going to be very controversial. And
Okay,
that's
I'm
that.
ready.
As someone who's a pescatarian who eats a lot of fish, to be fair, I haven't been to a proper fish and chip shop in like London, which I feel like if I'm going to criticize it, I have to have eaten that first. I
Okay.
find fish and chips to be too heavy. The batter is
Okay.
too thick, and I can't. Part of eating fish for me is enjoying the flavor of the actual fish. Maybe again, that's because I don't eat
Mm,
other meat that I'm like, this is my fix of that. But
sure.
I think also I have inherited neurotic Jewish stomach, so maybe it's just too
Oh
much
my, what's that?
oil.
Okay.
Oh, any Jew will
What
tell
is
you
what
there's
is this
the
affliction? Okay.
IBS and Crohn's runs rampant in our
Oh.
community.
Oh my.
Um,
Okay.
that it depends on the thing that's being fried, though. I feel like sometimes the combination of batter and it being like a thick batter over a white fish, it takes away from it as opposed to adding to it for me. But I also, though, it's not uncommon to have fried things on a sandwich or people who put like breadcrumbs on top of a mac and cheese. I don't love a breadcrumb on a mac and cheese. Again,
Okay.
controversial. People are going to
Sure.
be
Okay.
showing up to my door with pitchforks and torches, Kay,
Oh
with
no,
these
no, no,
opinions.
no.
No chocolate chips
No.
and banana bread. No breadcrumbs on a mac and cheese. I'm going to be hated. But I
No,
feel like
or you will
sometimes
find a trove of
I'll find
supporters who
my
are like,
kin.
hell to the yes, we're your community now. Let's all go make some banana bread, sans, chocolate chips. So you never know.
Exactly. The
You never
right
know.
way. Banana bread the right way.
Okay.
But yeah, that I feel like for me, that's sometimes when fried things become a little too much. Um,
Mm,
but something that's better fried, it's tough because eggplant is such a versatile vegetable too, or rather berry, I
mm.
suppose. Such a
There
versatile
we go.
berry. So it's hard to say.
So let's talk sandwiches, specifically the hero. The submarine sandwich, aka the sub or hoagie, has many origin stories. In New York, the term hero is used for a large sandwich on a long roll, and it probably popped up in the 1920s when Italian bakeries began making elongated rolls for sandwiches. And in Italian American delis like DeFonte's in Brooklyn since 1922, and Mangianero's in Hell's Kitchen that opened in 1893, and pizzerias in mid-century, Parm heroes became the standard. Chicken parm, veal parm, meatball parm, and eggplant parm, of course. Why did this happen? Well, several reasons, and just to name a few, there's the portability and convenience. The hero roll allowed a filling of fried eggplant, sauce, and cheese to be eaten on the go, perfect for busy American immigrant communities. Then there's menu logic. Delis offering parm sandwiches found that the combo worked. Bread plus fried item plus tomato sauce plus cheese. Eggplant fit perfectly into that formula. And nostalgia and identity. For Italian Americans, the sandwich version connected to traditions of home cooking while embracing the American sandwich form. The eggplant parm sandwich became a cultural artifact, a symbol of Italian American dining, of red sauce joints, of neighborhood delis, of immigrants and their children. It stands at the intersection of home cooking in places like southern Italy, migration to America, and adaptation to the sandwich form. Today, in many New York-style Italian delis like John's Deli in Brooklyn or Mike's Deli on Arthur Avenue, you'll find the eggplant parm hero on the menu. In recent years, chefs and restaurants have elevated the concept. You can take the restaurant Parm in New York City as an example, who focuses on their take on the parm sandwiches, with artisanal bread, high-quality eggplant, confit tomatoes, fresh-made mozzarella, fancy toppings, but the spirit is the same. The sandwich remains a bridge between everyday comfort and chef-driven innovation. DJ, in your opinion, when it comes to foods and dishes that get an elevated take, is that something that you're into? Is there a point where it can be taken too far?
Yeah, I feel like it depends who's doing it and what do they consider elevating because
Mm,
I feel like in the 2010s it was very popular for white chefs and restaurateurs to be like, we're going to do an elevated chana masala. And it's like,
yeah.
actually, it's incredible the way it is. So whatever you're going to do to
Yeah.
it, just please fucking stop. Just
Stop it.
don't.
Yeah.
When class becomes an element and when race becomes an element, it's like, what
Mm.
do you consider elevated? I also was so against the gold flake trend. It adds absolutely nothing.
Thank
I don't give a
you.
shit
Thank
about it.
you.
And you're not
Yes.
elevating something by putting something expensive on top of it.
I mean, that is a great assessment. And I appreciate the fact, too, that you mention, because that's initially where my mind went with the gold. When there was a time where it was like gold leaf, gold flakes on everything, and then just charging astronomical. Like nothing about the dish was any better. I'm sure it didn't. I mean, I know the gold doesn't make it taste any better, but I'm sure everything was the damn same. And then they just put the gold on it, and then they could charge a ridiculous price, and then they would have influencers and things like that, and be like, ugh. And there were like $1,000 chicken wings and like $400 donuts, and it was insane. And I would get so sad seeing this, because I'm like, if only you go out there, and if you're in the market to buy a $400 donut, go somewhere else, go buy a $5 donut, and then go donate $395 to like a charity of your choice or something like that. That would be money way more well spent. So, I mean, I don't know who was doing it. It was probably for the cloud. It was terrible, but like that was something, and I'm like, that is not elevation. That is a scam.
Absolutely. Well, like, listen, I get it. There's something, again, part of a gimmick to be like, oh, we have the most expensive XYZ in this city, ABC city. And I completely agree. I'm like, there's not a chance I would ever do that, especially because, I mean, I know you're based in New York, and my dad's originally from New York, which, you know, I've visited quite a bit in my adult life. I think it's one of the best, if not the best city in the world. Don't tell anybody.
Oh, yeah.
That I'm saying that we're in
Okay.
LA. I love LA.
It's fine.
I love LA. Don't get me wrong, but New York is great.
Yes.
And part of what makes New York great is if you want a certain cuisine or a certain dish, there's like 6,000 places you could go for it. And the thing that makes the experience unique is not just the dish being delicious, because there are many restaurants that will have their own delicious take on that dish. It's the experience and also the price point. New York is an incredibly expensive city. Every time I'm in New York, I love Xi'an famous foods, but like hand-pulled noodles in this Sichuan sauce, and it's like $10, $12, and it's massive. You eat it and you're full for like the whole day. Why would I go and buy a donut with gold leaf on it for $400 that probably tastes like dog shit, when I could have a delicious dish that's been, you know, like, these noodles are hand pulled in the back.
Yeah.
Why? What the hell? I would much rather do that. So, yeah, I completely agree with you there. Absolutely.
Well, what makes this eggplant Parmigiana sandwich unique isn't just its composition and flavor, it's its journey. Eggplant, once mistrusted in medieval Europe, became a beloved comfort food. A Sicilian Neapolitan debate turned into a defining Italian-American dish, and a humble casserole evolved into a handheld icon. So the next time you unwrap an eggplant parm hero, whether it's from a classic deli or an ambitious modern kitchen, remember the long, winding history sitting between two slices of bread. Its migration, adaptation, creativity, and nostalgia all layered together. A story as rich as the sauce it's covered in. DJ, what do you think about the backstory of the eggplant Parmigiana sandwich?
So incredible. I assumed we would be starting in Italy or getting some Italian history, which we did, but it started long before that, of course, because you had to track the migration of the eggplant and also the tomato, which is very interesting.
Yes.
I feel like I've learned so much, and I love that the story of this was based in taking foods that are delicious and making them more accessible in a way, not to bring it back to that, but the idea of being like, okay, we're going to make it more available for more people. I love the idea that it was used as a meat substitute, because that's how I use it today. It's a very meaty vegetable. People love to try and be like, oh, cauliflower steak, cauliflower buffalo chicken bites.
It is not the same.
Cauliflower. Actually, speaking of that, when I was in 2020, I shot this movie where part of it, we shot it in Buffalo, New York, of course, the home of buffalo sauce, buffalo wings, and one of the crew lunches we ordered from a place in town that was very famous for buffalo wings. Again, I don't eat meat, so they had, I think they called them eggplant wings.
This is very different. I was like, I know where you're going. You're going to say cauliflower wings.
No, they had
eggplant wings,
and they were almost like the shape and depth of like an orange slice. Like it almost was like chips of eggplant.
Yes.
And they tossed that in buffalo sauce, and it was so good. So anyways, all this to say, I love you, eggplant. You're a real one. I love you forever. Please marry me. Cauliflower, burn in hell.
We We know where you stand. You should absolutely create some merch. I think you can get real creative. You already know how to market it. I feel like you can get real creative with the imagery. They could be like cartoony looking, like
for sure.
You know, you're the
Condom
pro here.
Shack cauliflower collab. Let's do it.
Listen, I better be the first one you call when that happens because I will be very excited. I will fly up to Toronto to see this.
Yes.
Got to dream big. Yes, this is amazing. Well, with a sandwich this popular, it's a bit curious that it hasn't swept pop culture moments. You'll find more chicken parm out in the wild, which is funny since eggplant parmigiana was first. But regardless, there are still some fun moments for our eggplant parmigiana sandwich. On the popular YouTube channel, Binging with Babish, there's an episode, Parm Heroes from Lots of Things, where host Andrew, aka Babish, cooks up a variety of parm heroes and refers to the eggplant parm hero as his death row meal. You guys have that in common. You can find many, many recipes online and articles from food media like Bon Appetit that call eggplant parm one of the pillars of parm hero culture in New York City. And Eater's 2014 Battle of the NYC Heroes, which includes eggplant parm among the classic hot heroes of Italian-American sandwich lore. And while it's not a hero sandwich specifically, the family-owned Atlanta restaurant Scalini's has been a bit of a legend with their house eggplant parmigiana among expecting mothers. The manager has said the dish has triggered labor for hundreds of women after they eat it. The restaurant claims that the recipe has been the same for decades, and the staff reports hundreds of eggplant baby births after women ate the dish, though this is anecdotal and not scientifically verified. DJ, can you think of any other pop cultural moments where eggplant parmigiana sandwich made its mark, or any final words that you have about your favorite food?
Well, I mean, I definitely can't do an eggplant parmesan with that Atlanta restaurant collab with Condom Shack. Kind of opposed. Those two things are opposed.
They would clash.
So that's the main thing I'm noting. I don't know. Eggplant parmesan, it doesn't hold necessarily like pop culture significance, but more just like it's been something that's existed in my life from a young age. To hear you say, I don't think I picked up on earlier, to hear you say that eggplant parm came first and chicken parm came later. Sort of an chicken egg situation. Whoa, chicken eggplant situation. That is incredible to me because chicken parm heads love to think that they are the cock of the fucking walk. And let me tell you, eggplant parm came first. So why did the chicken cross the road? Because the eggplant did first, bitch.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that was really thrilling to me. So that's my pop culture moment, is us right now and me discovering that eggplant parm came before chicken parm.
That's beautiful. DJ, thank you so much for sharing your love of the eggplant parmigiana sandwich and helping me to tell its story.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I had genuinely the best time, as you can probably tell in my elated responses. Thank you so much for all this research, Kae. It fucking ruled. I learned so much.
Thanks for watching. You can find links and more info in the description below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. See you next time.